Hi, and welcome to this advanced iOS course. We're going to be using iPad in this course. Really, there's very subtle differences between using an iPhone and an iPad to develop, but in the basic course, in the introductory course, we used an iPhone, so I thought it only fair to use an iPad in this course. So the purpose of this discussion is to kind of present a course outline and talk about what we're going to be doing in the course. So first of all, what are you going to need? Well, you're going to need an Intel-based Mac that runs OS X version 10.8 or higher for this course. You're going to need Xcode, which is a free application. It is the IDE that we use to develop with iOS in Objective-C, the language, for an iPhone, iPad, iPod Touch. And also Xcode is used for Mac OS X development as well. It's a free download from developer.apple.com. To test your applications on an actual iPad, you're going to need a developer account with Apple. And this is really, as I say sometime later in the course, this is really cheap. It is $99 a year. And if you're serious about, or if you get serious about application development for these devices, the details for this are at developer.apple.com. And this gives us access to many useful resources for Apple development, as well as allow you to test your apps on an actual device, which is important, as well as allowing you to publish apps to the App Store. So I said that all right here. Some prerequisites for the course. The course teaches advanced Objective-C concepts. So you will assume you have a good working knowledge of both C and Objective-C. And you can get this knowledge by looking at our basic application development course using iPhone for iOS. So I recommend that course. You can also get this knowledge from other sources online, books, and so forth. And also, as I already said, the developer.apple.com site has many useful resources that will help you get the knowledge that you need to look at some more advanced topics like we do in this course. So what are these topics? Well, there are 5 units in this course. Unit 1 is going to go over some basic concepts. We're going to review C structs and how they're used in iOS and how to do some different things. And Objective-C has classes, of course, and we can use C structures as properties, but there are things of those classes, but there are things that we need to know before we just jump in and try to create a type definition for a structure in a C property or Objective-C property. We need to know some things before that. So we're going to review C structures. We're also going to talk about something called a block. And this is a C construct in the LLVM compiler that is used in various ways. And a block is just a piece of code with or without a name that is used as a function that can be passed to other functions, can be passed to methods, and it's a very useful concept. We'll talk about simple threading using a class called NSThread. So Unit 1 is all about some basic concepts that we need to cover before we jump into the other topics in the course. Unit 2 talks about really one big threading technology called Grand Central Dispatch. We will talk about Grand Central Dispatch, which is kind of a wrapper around something called an NS operation and an NS operation queue. We'll talk about synchronizing between threads. And we'll talk about using the concept of blocks that we learned in Unit 1 with Grand Central Dispatch. So Grand Central Dispatch is a way to extend our ability to perform threaded tasks without too much overhead as far as a learning curve. If we need really tightly controlled threads, we can drop down and use NS operation and NS operation queues as well. In Unit 3, we'll talk about core motion and about sensors. We'll talk about detecting shakes on a device, which is really extremely easy. We'll talk about the accelerometer, the gravimeter and the magnetometer that are actually in the physical device and how to use those. And then finally, we'll talk about the core location service, how to locate the device in the world using cell tower information, using GPS if the device comes with GPS, and so on and so forth. Unit 4 is about view and layer animation. So we're not talking at this point about 3D graphics, we're talking about 2D graphics. Animating view objects, any view object, using just the simple stuff that is in UIKit. Modifying a view's frame property in such a way that it changes over time. Then we'll talk about something called a layer and how a layer concept relates to a view. We'll mention that all views have layers, but not all layers are in a view, and so on. We'll talk about animating those layers, which gives us a new way to perform animation on a view or a view's layers that is extremely powerful using a technology and a framework called core animation. We can even apply matrix transforms to layers, and we'll show you how to do that as well. Finally, we'll talk about OpenGL ES 2.0. And OpenGL is one of those things that we talk about in a course like this because it certainly is an advanced topic, but I should state right up front, right now, there is no way that we can cover all the aspects of OpenGL ES 1.1 or 2.0. It's simply too big a topic. We could go on and on and on about it, and even when we thought we got to the end, there would be something else to talk about. So we have to draw the line someplace. So here's what we're going to talk about. We'll talk about setting up the environment just to display a single color on the background. We'll talk about writing simple shaders, vertex and fragment shaders, supplying vertices and colors to our application just from the point of view of putting those into the application and then drawing the vertices and each color for each vertex. We'll talk about some simple matrices, how to apply a translation and a rotation and a scale matrix. And along the way, we'll look at a simple matrix utility class. This class, caveat right now, is not really to be picked up and borrowed or used in production code. It is not optimized. The class that it is written and the methods inside it are written in such a way that it is easy to understand what's going on. But it is not a production mode kind of class. The model view projection matrix, we'll talk about that and how we apply it to our shaders. And then we'll talk finally about rendering content in a timer loop. It's very simple to do this. We set up a timer as a scheduled timer, and then we call the render function in our application over and over and over again. So that's it. That's what we're going to talk about. So with that information, let's get started.